Oh, shit. Twin sign Blake Parker.
I don't know who that is.
Who?
You know who that is?
I've heard of him, but...
You saw him on Facebook.
If you don't know who he is, then
he used to play for the Angels. I know that. He was their closer and then got the job taken away from him because he sucked.
Someone said Lil Wayne looks like a trap hamburglar.
I'll give it to Lil Wayne, though, for doing something different. He's still terrible right now. He used to be so good.
That's all I was about to say.
It's like the Carter 3 was epic. The Carter 4...
Like father, like son.
You know.
All those mixtapes. Dedication mixtapes.
Yep. Yeah, he was good. They just did too much lean. Started sounding stupid.
Yeah.
Now he rhymes everything with pussy.
The NFL has officially changed Cody Parkey's missed field goal yesterday to a blocked kick.
Yeah, nobody cares.
All them people that say they wish Cody Parkey would die can
They probably still
take that.
They should probably calm down, though. Like that one dude. Fucking motherfucker. Typical Chicago fan.
Man, KG posted this on Instagram.
I saw that.
What did he say?
It just said, someone said they should hire, they tagged Garnett, and he just took a picture of it and posted it on his Instagram story.
To coach?
I don't know. It just said they should hire him.
Well, I could hear him being a coach way before an owner.
Funny thing is, if they hired him as a coach, he'd probably run Thibs' defense.
Yeah.
Probably
and
would.
offense.
That 07 Celtics defense.
And you want to know something? Everybody, all the fans would be like, this is the greatest defense ever. It's so good. Just wait till these players get a hang of it. It'll be so good.
All right, guys. So this is going to be our podcast this year. It's going to we're going to be going over a couple different. What do you think? Once a week, once every 2 weeks. What do you guys think?
2 weeks, maybe?
Breaking stories, emergency podcast calls.
Emergency.
Yeah.
Yep. So today's an emergency because we had a huge situation happen yesterday with the Timberwolves. And this is our first podcast of the year, probably our first podcast ever. And first we're going to start by introducing ourselves. My name is Jason. I'm from Big Lake, grew up in Minneapolis. I like to, one of my hobbies is coaching youth football. Growing up, I played multiple different sports, but I was always average at best. But I'm sitting next to two legends. Apparently, we got somebody who went all state here.
No, it was an honorable mention.
That's a little too far.
So it was honorable mention?
All conference, honorable mention.
And then another guy who's full of himself, and he thinks that he's the shit because... What'd you do?
I basically take over the fantasy football world.
Well, you hit, softballs really far in the fall compared to the summer or something.
Well, I mean, my high school best achievement was hitting a double off of Pat Neshek off the fence, so I did do that.
Right. Was his delivery the same at that time?
Nope, he was straight over the top.
Oh, okay. That was probably easier then.
That was prior arm problems.
He threw hard, though.
Yeah, he did. Got a bunt single off of him, too. I don't typically get bunt singles.
How the hell did you make it to first in time?
He probably tripped on the way to getting the ball.
Did you see what happened, or did you just focus on first and run as fast as you can?
You just put your head down and run.
Yeah.
He snapped his tibia trying to field the ball.
ACL was torn, still was able to field the ball and almost got me out.
Pat here is actually a, 6 fantasy football leagues?
Yep.
So you took first place in 3 of them.
Correct.
And top 5 in the other top 3?
No,
top 5?
3rd in one, 4th in one, and 5th in the other.
Wow.
So...
Yeah, you're so epic at fantasy football.
If these listeners ever need any advice, I just...
So what's your total winnings for the year in 1 year, 1 season?
We're probably over $1,000 altogether.
Now,
at least.
I'm pretty sure TJ here was actually on your team for one of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He might have had some influence on who you guys drafted in that league.
Probably most of the influence.
Where do you guys draft at?
Minneapolis Police Department, the Parks Division. We drafted there, so it's basically all Minneapolis police officers and then us.
Is there a name for the league?
It's called the Felony Football League.
You guys just call it Cop League.
Yeah, basically Cop
League.
League.
A bunch of cops.
Yeah, our team name is called the Ghetto Boys.
That's a great name.
Pat's
Cop
choice.
League.
Pat's choice.
Yeah, I mean, I got picked that like 17 years ago.
TJ, didn't you have a tweet about your guys' team?
Yeah, I follow kind of a lot of fantasy-related accounts on Twitter, and just stumbled upon an article that a fantasy expert that I follow posted. He wrote up his kind of hindsight 2018, his theoretical perfect team, and I just thought it sounded like an interesting read, so I clicked on it and read it, and I think probably 6 or 7 of the players that Pat and I had on our Cop League team was mentioned in the article, and it kind of struck me. Like, I knew we had a great draft, but it kind of put it all in perspective, and I was like, man, we really did have a great draft. So I ended up screenshotting our team and sent it to him, posted it as a comment, and he was like, man, I love it. And I was like, it's kind of a cool thing when you can get a fantasy expert to kind of co-sign your team. So that was kind of cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, the key to that whole thing was definitely hitting on your first 2 picks, because if one of your first 2 picks doesn't pan out, a la Le'Veon Bell, doesn't even show up and play, then your team's probably not going to be very good.
Did you guys have the last pick?
We did. We had the 12th pick, and we ended up taking Christian McCaffrey, which we were kind of debating. Yeah, he wasn't really considered a first-round pick, but we took that chance, and it worked out. So it was cool. It was fun.
That's cool.
Worked out well.
Well, the name of our podcast, guys, is PodCrewMN. So if you have any questions, you can actually email us at podcrewmn@gmail.com. We're going to be going over questions later on here today. Some of the people that emailed in, and we'll, every episode we're gonna have a couple of our fans and listeners and go over their questions. Pat, what is your Twitter handle?
At Fallball Legend.
Fallball Legend.
Fallball Legend.
Why?
Because I play softball and I'm really good during the fall when the ball gets really hard and flies out of the park. That's basically it.
And then TJ is actually you got something that you're doing on the side too as well. If you can explain that.
Yeah, I'm an artist. I kind of do illustrations, kind of more abstract art. I don't know if you want to check that out. I think the easiest way is probably my Instagram, TJ Caswell Art, or my website, which is tjcaswell.com. Yeah, I do some cool things, I think, in my opinion, so it's worth checking it out, I think.
In my opinion as well. What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is at TJ Caswell, and that is because that is my human name. No great story to that, but
my Twitter handle is not a human name. It's actually Shizdope, at Shizdope.
SHIZZ.
DOPE.
Correct.
Yep, because that shit's dope.
Yep.
Now that you have the introductions, we're going to actually move on to the most pressing topic of the day here. Timberwolves, for season so far. We're obviously going to get to the meat and potatoes of the firing here in a minute, but I think to justify our opinions on the firing, we might need to go over maybe a recap of what's gone on this year with the Timberwolves. So, Pat, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts on let's just do Wiggins. He's got a huge contract, been very topsy-turvy, up and down. Free throw shooting has been a little off here and there. He's had a great stretch the last couple of games. What's your thoughts on Andrew Wiggins?
I honestly, I'm beginning to think that I'm the only Wiggins supporter in the state of Minnesota. I mean, just looking at Twitter and everything, you hear a bunch of people say we need to get rid of him, trade him for a bag of basketballs.
That's me.
Yeah, basically you. But my opinion of Wiggins, I mean, did he deserve the max contract that he got? Probably not. But when you have a guy that's that talented, that when he is engaged and he is playing well, this team wins. As of right now, he's only averaging 17 points a game, which is definitely down from what he's averaged in the past. But a couple years ago, the guy averaged 24 point something. I mean, you can't not have talent in this league and average 24 points a game. I mean, you have to have some talent, offensive talent. I think he's a better defender than people are giving him credit for. I mean, when he is engaged, he hustles all over the court. He's not quite Josh Okogie, because that's really all Okogie offers is hustle. But, I'm not really down on Wiggins. I think he was out of place last year being the third star of the team and just kind of sitting back, watching Butler create and watching Cat do his thing, and he just kind of stood around. Well, now that Butler's gone, he's got the opportunity to, step up, and hopefully the rest of the season he brings that 17 points per game up, and, we can get some wins. I mean, we're not that far out of the playoffs right now, and we're almost 500, and, that's not too bad with the way that we started, especially with the Butler situation.
TJ, what is your thoughts on Andrew Wiggins?
I kind of go back and forth on it. I've definitely always been a fan of his talent. I think he has a world of talent and potential. I think early in his career, maybe I kind of had higher expectations than maybe I should have, seeing as where it is now. I think we were talking maybe a week or so ago about Wiggins, and I mentioned that his dad played in the NBA and his mom is like a world-class sprinter. I don't know if she was like an Olympian or not, but she was on some type of level in that area. But I think Wiggins just grew up being a crazy athlete. I think basketball kind of chose him. I'm not sure he chose basketball, so I think the ship has kind of sailed as far as I don't know. I wouldn't say that he lacks effort. I just think that he doesn't have that extra gear that some players have, and I've come to terms with that. I think he can be obviously a asset offensively. I agree with Pat. I think that he does play better defense than he gets credit for. As far as his contract, I think we didn't really have much of a choice. I mean, you trade Kevin Love, your all-star. You invest in a first overall pick. I mean, you kind of have to ride that out. Like, I know people in hindsight say that he's not worth it, but I mean, being the team we are, the Timberwolves have limitations as far as acquiring players. So when you have an investment in a player like that, you kind of just got to see it through.
In terms of Wiggins, in my opinion, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm kind of more of a fair-weather fan when it comes to basketball. I only follow the Timberwolves. I don't watch much NBA stuff. That's kind of what TJ's for, in my opinion. Pat's going to be our baseball specialist. TJ will be able to keep up with him on that. I'm going to be more of a football guy. But from what I've seen from Andrew Wiggins, just in the last 2-3 years watching him, it's actually 4 years now, right?
It's his fifth year.
It's his fifth year?
Yeah.
So there's something missing in terms of his mental game. He checks out, and he doesn't engage correctly. He doesn't impose his will onto the court when he can. That's the thing, is his ability he's actually probably, in terms of if you take athleticism, ball skills, everything, put it all together, he's probably the best all-around player on the NBA, on our team, not in the NBA, on our team, but doesn't have the mental drive that you need to be an elite player in the NBA. And people get mad at him for it. That you know, they assume because he's a first-round pick that he should automatically have that. And like you alluded to, you know, growing up in a family where you've always been given everything, you know, your mom's a sprinter, your dad's a former NBA player. This guy's he's been the best player on every single team his whole life up until the NBA. Now this is the first time that he's facing adversity. So what is he, 23 years old? You know what I mean? Think about where we were at 23, and when we face adversity in the regular world. This guy's on the biggest stage in the world. He's got millions of people watching him, and there's times when he just checks out because that's all he knows how to do. Somebody he needs to be challenged, and people need to figure out a way to get him to respond to challenges and learn how to impose his will on the court. There's nights when he's just going off, you know what I mean, and he's feeling it. And then there's nights when he's getting 6 points. It doesn't make any sense. Like, he's too good to just check out and be, I guess, invisible for 2 quarters. That doesn't make any sense when it comes to a talent like that. So that's just my opinion on it. What do you guys think about Cat? That guy's on fire right now. What do you guys think about his All-Star voting? Where's he at right now? He's one of the best big mans in the league, isn't he? In my opinion, he is.
All I've seen is the early returns on All-Star voting, and he was not even on the list as far as, like, I think it was top 10.
Yeah.
Maybe even more, but...
He wasn't. Kyle Kuzma was ahead of him.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It is embarrassing. For a guy that's averaging 22 a game, you know, his defense has improved greatly over, you know, the last year even. I mean, you can see his help defense has been great. His blocks I believe, are up. The guy's grabbing, you know, 15, 16, 17 rebounds over the last few games. I mean, he's inserting himself in all aspects of the game. And I mean, you can't ask for anything more out of a player that is supposed to be the franchise player. So I have no issues with Cat at all. Sometimes he whines a little too much for, you know, calls and stuff like that. But I mean, when games start, he's literally in foul trouble within the first couple minutes of the game. Game starts, 2 minutes into it, he's got 2 fouls and he's got to sit on the bench. I mean, and a lot of them are, to me, ticky-tack. You know,
I think that has to go with being Timberwolves fans. We're just not going to get frickin' calls. We're a small market team, which we're not, but people say we are. So when it comes to Cat, this year is his last year on his current deal, correct?
No, he just resigned.
I know, but it starts next year, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the first year of the new max contract.
And he's about to get basically $200 million for 5 years.
It depends. He has to make an All-NBA team.
A bunch
to get to 190.
Big incentive.
Yeah.
Laden.
So just one time he has to make an All-NBA team?
This year, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, for that whole 190 to okay.
So, yeah.
So then does it adjust down to like 160 or 170 or something?
Yeah, I think it's 158 around there. I'm not sure exactly.
So 5 for 158?
I mean,
I think I read the other day, if he doesn't make an All-NBA team, he loses $32 million.
Jesus.
I believe.
I mean, he's not even top 10 in All-Star voting, so I mean, you might just want to cut him.
He's one of the best big men. He's one of the best big men in the NFL, in the NBA.
Yeah.
So, what is he going to get? $30 million per year, basically.
I mean, if he hits that All NBA, I mean, he's around 35.
Do you think that he can make an All NBA team without making being top 10 in All-Star voting?
I don't understand. I mean, that's what happens when you leave All-Star voting up to fans. I mean, back in was it late 90s, Penny Hardaway was voted into the All-Star game and didn't even play a game prior to the All-Star game. I mean, that's what happens when it's fan voting. I mean, it's a popularity vote, probably because Carl plays here in Minnesota and nobody even pays attention to Minnesota.
That's crazy. So,
I think he will make the All-Star team, though. I mean, that's just an early return, so...
Well, yeah, he'll probably make the All-Star team, but there's no... You know, if you look at... Who's the top 4 big men in the NBA right now?
Anthony Davis. Embiid, Cat.
I mean, they put it
top 3.
They basically
There's probably a couple.
They break it down front court and back court. So I mean, LeBron's in there, for like front court, and Giannis is in
forwards
there.
And centers are thrown together right now.
Yeah, they don't have it just centers.
Yeah. Well, how do you say his name in Milwaukee?
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
What?
Antetokounmpo.
That's a cool name.
I just call him Giannis.
We'll just stick with Giannis from now on.
Greek god. Is that his nickname?
Greek freak.
Greek freak. There you go.
Greek god.
That was awesome.
Zeus. So, we went over Wiggins and Cat. One of the surprises, starting probably through the middle of last year, maybe earlier than that, is Derrick Rose. What do you think, TJ? I'll start with you on this one. What do you think about, his output, his minutes? If you look at what he's doing and compare it with his minutes, he's been one of the best guards in the NBA. Obviously, there's still injury concerns. How do you think? What is he? 32?
Just turned 30.
And his knees are probably 36.
Yeah,
maybe older than that.
But they try to keep down his minutes, and with that, we're getting a huge return on what he's been providing the Timberwolves.
Yeah. I don't really hear many people giving Thibs credit for signing a borderline all-star to a minimum contract. Like, that just never happens. Like, I don't know. But my overall thoughts on Derrick Rose, I remember talking to you guys last year before we signed him, and I just felt like we needed an aggressive attacker off the bench, and I thought that he'd be the perfect guy for that. I know there's a lot of consternation within Wolves Nation about bringing him in, but I was pretty much for it from the beginning. I thought our bench unit lacked any kind of direction.
What'd you have to lose?
I thought our bench unit lacked any kind of offensive aggressiveness, and I thought that he brought that, and that's what I was looking for, and he definitely has provided that. This year, when he started and gets higher minutes, I kind of like it a little bit less. I still like him as a player. I appreciate what he brings to the table as far as attacking the basket. I think it's been vitally important to the Wolves this year, but I think when he's in the starting unit, I don't want to take that aggressiveness away, but I do feel like sometimes it takes away from getting Cat involved at the beginning of the game, and that's kind of a concern. So when I originally wanted him on the team, I thought he was perfect as a sixth man, and he's excelled in that role. It's not bad to have him as an option when you have an injury to Teague as a starter. It's definitely not a bad thing, but I think all in all, I think he's a great player as far as coming off the bench, and I think that's the role he's best suited as on this team.
How do you feel about Rose, Pat?
Well, at the beginning of the year, just looking at Twitter, there was a lot of people on Twitter. No names are going to be named here, but a lot of people were saying that he shouldn't even be a starting point guard in China. For a guy that's signing the minimum contract in the NBA to, be a six-man averaging 18.9 points a game.
It's getting all-star consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And, while I say that fans don't necessarily care about Minnesota, it's good to see there are fans out there that are actually giving him a little credit. Maybe it's because of the feel-good story. Everybody loves a good feel-good story.
He has a loyal fan base in Chicago, too.
Absolutely. But, especially the story with the guy, kind of walked away from the game, kind of disappeared for, I don't know, what was it, 10 days or something when he was in New York or whatever.
Yeah, I think that happened with the Cavs as well.
Yeah, he didn't know what his future was at that point either. So, to see people actually giving him a little credit, and I like him better coming off the bench as well, especially for a bench that needs that scoring punch when the starters come out. I've watched way too many games this year where Rose has been injured and hasn't played, where the starters come out, they work a big lead into the game, starters come out, and the bench gives it away instantly because we don't have anybody that can really score.
Right.
And then you got to keep, a player like Cat or a player like Wiggins, and just adding minutes and everything onto them, because that scoring is not there when you put, Dang, Tyus, Sarek, he's hit or miss.
He's struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he was struggling before we even traded for him. But
he looks like he's pressing. He looks like he's trying to just force himself into the game. He's not
even so, I don't think he's a go-to scorer anyway. He's kind of a complimentary piece, which I think he'd be great next to Cat when he eventually starts at the 4. I think that's probably the role he's destined for. But right now, he's not able to, shoulder that scoring load that we need off the bench when Rose is gone. So we kind of have a bunch of guys out there that kind of, are all complimentary pieces. And I feel like they all kind of look to each other to, just wait for somebody to do something. And it just doesn't work. It bogs down badly, and we leads evaporate. So,
give me some notables on some of the other players on the team. One player that actually kind of bugs me is Teague. Jeff Teague. This guy doesn't see the play develop like a normal guard in the NBA does. You know what I mean? It seems like he's always a step behind. What do you think, Pat?
I actually don't mind Teague that much. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Tyus. I know because he has the
both our guards.
Because Tyus has the Minnesota connection. He grew up here, went to Apple Valley High School. I mean, he's been around the organization basically his entire life because he's been the best player in the state.
He's come on recently, though. I have to give him credit.
He has when he had to start because Rose and Teague were out. I mean, he's been playing better, but there's been times where it just kind of looks like he doesn't know what he's doing out there.
There's times earlier in the year where he looked like he was scared to shoot, which is kind of concerning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, for a guy that needs to facilitate a little bit, I don't mind Teague. I mean, everybody's kind of up in arms because we got rid of Rubio to sign Teague last year. I don't mind it at all. Teague's a better scorer than Rubio ever was. I mean, I was excited to see.
I wouldn't say I'm up in arms about getting rid of Rubio.
When they first traded Rubio, I was a little upset because I thought Rubio could be a really, really, really good player with, a Butler, a Wiggins, and a Cat, and all he has to do is basically, penetrate and kick and, just pass. And, his passing ability is basically elite in the league.
Yeah.
I was excited for that, but I mean, for a team that needs, a threat of a scoring point guard, I didn't think Teague was that bad. And ever since he's come back from his injury, I thought he's looked really good.
Yeah, he has. I think maybe he was dealing with an injury that people didn't know about earlier in the year, and he struggled. But like Pat said, since he's been back, he's been playing really well. He's been aggressive, looking to score, and his shot's been going, so it's been nice to see.
Whatever. I still don't like Jeff Teague. So
now, why? Tell us why.
He does dribble a lot.
Yeah, he looks lost from time to time. Our guard play. I feel like if we had just a top 15 guard on our team, we would be better. You know what I mean? Like we don't. It seems like he has a hard time facilitating the offense from time to time.
You don't think Teague's a top 15 guard?
No.
I mean, with Atlanta, he was an all-star for consecutive years. I'd still put him in there.
That was with Atlanta. He's in Minnesota now, and he looks lost.
I'd say he's probably 15.
So he's 15?
Yeah, maybe 15, 14.
See what I'm saying, though? like you like him, and you're putting him at 15th. I don't like him, and I'm saying he's not top 15. It's pretty much the same shit.
Yeah, except you're putting him at 16. I don't like that. It's being mean.
With that being said, Jimmy Butler, at the beginning of the year, this guy was an ass clown to the fucking team. He was sitting around. He was being a douchebag, not playing, saying he's hurt. Now he's pulling the same shit in Philly. Thoughts on Jimmy Butler in the trade? What do you think, TJ?
I've thought about this a lot. There's information out there that we'll just never have, so I can't fully develop my opinion. I think one of the big things that I think about a lot is what was communicated to Butler when we traded for him from Chicago. Because if I remember right, Chicago was kind of concerned about giving him a big deal, and I think that was part of the reason that they looked to move on from him and get younger. Part of me believes that maybe there was some kind of discussion that Thibs may have had with Butler about his next contract. I don't want to say that he promised him he'd sign it, but my gut tells me that he at least alluded to it's probably better than a 50-50 chance that we sign him to his long-term max deal. Just trying to piece it together in my eyes, I think maybe Glenn Taylor got cold feet about signing him to that long deal, which I do not blame him for. I was ready to do it because as far as being a Timberwolves fan in this market, it's hard to acquire all NBA players. I wasn't thrilled about the prospects of paying him $40 million when he was 34, but I was ready to bite the bullet and just, have 2 all NBA players and just try to make a run over the next few years. But on the other side of that coin, I could see not wanting to pay him as an owner that much money when he's getting older. His body's breaking down. So part of me...
Yeah, he did have injury issues.
Part of me, if that is the case, part of me can see Butler's point of view on that and wanting to get out. Would I blame him for wanting to be traded? No. Will I blame him for how he handled it? 100%. I thought he was completely unprofessional. I thought he torpedoed the team. We got off to a horrible start. We had to deal with all that circus. And, I just thought that it was the complete wrong way to go about it. If you want to trade, just request a trade and put your head down and work. And if they tell you that they're going to facilitate that trade, then you just have to listen to them. I mean, you're under contract. You're a professional basketball player. You're part of a team. I know there's discussion on how players, have to honor contracts and how franchises have to honor contracts, but just in my opinion, you sign for good money. If you want to get traded, make your request and leave it up to them. I don't, just completely tanking a team start of a season because you want out. I thought it was embarrassing.
Right. Dan Barreau actually had Lou Nanne on, who was a former GM in the NHL. And he asked him about, when players want to be traded, well, how, what as GM, how do you feel about, players wanting to be traded and what the proper protocol should be? And Lou Nanne said, well, the first thing I would tell a player if they want to be traded would be not to let anybody know that you want to be traded. So that way people can actually, you can start shopping him for real, get real offers. There's not rumors going around. What did you think about how Jimmy Butler handled it?
I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, there was reports also saying that, earlier in the summer he probably informed Thibs that he wanted to, be traded or, whatever from the Timberwolves. But I do honestly think that Thibodeau thought that he could save that relationship because he had such a good relationship with Butler.
I don't blame him. Don't you want to keep all NBA players on your roster?
Oh, absolutely. Right, exactly. From what I've heard, we've offered him the 4-year, $110 million contract.
That's true. He turned it down.
Yeah, which is understandable because in free agency, if he was to re-sign, he could get the 5 for $190. So I understand, but at that point, they were willing to show that they were going to give him a long-term contract. And I don't want to pay a player, $40 million when he's 36 years old or whatever. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. 34, 35, 36. I mean, that's too much for a player. He's
breaking down like he's about to be 36.
Injury concerns and everything. I don't know. Going back to the trade, I would have did the trade 10 out of 10 times. I know people are going to focus on the fact that Levine is all of a sudden turned into, some sort of scoring machine in Chicago.
Yeah, what's Chicago's record?
I think they're the worst in the league. Yeah, they got a really bad record. So hindsight 2020. I mean, would you rather have Levine or Wiggins? I would honestly still rather have Wiggins because I think he offers more, especially on the defensive end.
I just want to piggyback off what you said though, but that is kind of like the blueprint for NBA team success now is you accumulate young assets and then you use those to package to get an all-NBA type player. And that's exactly what Tom Thibodeau came in here and did. It's completely different from anything a Timberwolves team has done in the past. We're usually the one trading the all-NBA player. So like Pat said, I'm 100% would never criticize that trade. I thought it was 100% right thing to do.
I mean,
what do you guys think about, Pat, I'll start with you. What do you think about him holding out for the right trade? Like, people were putting all these reports about how, Thibs is forcing, Jimmy Butler down Taylor's throat and all this other stuff. He just wasn't trying to get freaking Debo'd for a bullshit trade.
I do think that there's some truth to that. I also do think that, Thibs earlier in the season, probably in the offseason, said that he would rather resign than trade Butler.
Because he probably knew Jimmy Butler wanted to be traded, so he's trying to set it up to get the best package, don't you think?
I mean, that could be it. It could also be because Thibodeau thinks that he could save that relationship.
Yeah, Thibs is kind of cocky like that, too.
I mean, Thibodeau basically made Butler. I mean, Butler's always kind of had that drive, that dog, but I mean, he's the one that gave him the chance in the first place with Chicago.
Right.
So Thibs probably just thought he could save that relationship. I mean, I don't blame him for that either.
Derrick Rose just came out and said there's nothing like a coach that believes in you like Tom Thibodeau believes in him.
I mean, I mean, Thibodeau, he believes in his old players, which is why we have Gibson, which is why we have Deng, which is why we have Rose, which is why we had Butler. I mean, the list goes on and on of players that we had that he used to coach. I mean, he believes in his old players because he has a certain system that he wants to run, and those guys know how to run it. Whether you think it's a dated system or not, I mean, if you're going to be the coach, don't you want players around that know how to run what you're trying to run?
Well, it's kind of like you guys said right away when we started. If KG was running the same defensive system,
well,
you know what I'm saying?
hearing those rumors, or them people saying that KG should take over as coach, I think is absolutely ridiculous.
I'd rather have KG than Saunders. Anyways, we'll wait for that. What do you guys think about the actual trade? TJ, I'll start with you. Getting back Rocco and Dario Saric. I guess we got Jared Bayless too.
Yeah, he's
throwing.
Yeah, he's a throw-in.
Yeah,
extra body.
Yeah, I love the trade. I mean, you get Robert Covington, an all-defensive player. You get Dario Saric, a young, big player that can shoot. Covington, I think he kind of falls in love with shooting the three sometimes. I know that was one of his criticisms with Philly. Say he's kind of inconsistent three-point shooter. Just from what I've seen, I feel like he makes clutch threes, which is a nice attribute to have and that we can definitely use. But, I mean, just watching his hustle on the defensive end and how skilled he is defensively, I mean, that's perfect for what we need, especially next to Towns and Wiggins. Obviously, we're going to build around those two. I think Covington and Saric are great fits next to those two, so I thought we did really well in the trade.
What do you think, Pat?
I mean, I like the trade as well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, nobody knows what other trades were out there. It's all complete speculation. Nobody knows if, Richardson was available in Miami. Nobody knows, those 4 first-round draft picks that supposedly Houston.
Hey, hold up. TJ, what did Doogie say to you about that trade? Weren't you talking about this? You were tweeting at Doogie.
Oh, yeah, I got into a Twitter, I wouldn't say an argument, but kind of a back and forth where I'm just of the belief, and it's just my gut feeling from everything that I've read and seen, is I don't believe that. I think a lot of Wolves fans think that Richardson, Olenek, and a first-round pick was offered from Miami. I have my doubts about that. The way I feel like it probably went is they weren't offering Richardson at all at the beginning, and that was a non-starter for the Wolves. I feel like Miami countered. They probably put Richardson on the table, but we had to take Deion Waiters is my guess, and the Wolves said no, and that's kind of where it fell apart, in my opinion. I kind of had a back and forth. Some Wolves fans believe that Richardson Olenek first round pick was offered. I don't. I know Doogie had Glenn Taylor on his podcast, and Glenn Taylor, there was some speculation that Miami trade was offered and that we came back and wanted $5 million on top of all that, which I have a hard time believing as well. But I think Glenn Taylor refuted that on his podcast. And I guess it was kind of the wording, but the way I took what Glenn Taylor said was, I'm paraphrasing, but he said that there was no offers that were really intriguing. So I don't see who could look at Richardson, Olenek, a first-round pick, and not call that intriguing. So I guess I put 2 and 2 together and just thought that was never offered. So that's why I asked him.
So wait, they wanted us to pay an extra $5 million?
No, we wanted them to pay $5 million.
How would that be a deal breaker? In the end, these dudes are worth billions. How would a $5 million be a deal breaker?
I don't know. That's a good question, but that's a rumor that was out there. So
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't think that would have necessarily broke a trade.
Right, exactly.
That's just my opinion of Covington, though, is the guy was undrafted.
Yep.
Went through the D League, worked his way all the way up to being a starter, got himself a nice little contract, and now we have control of him through like 2021. I mean, we got 2 more years of him, Sarek. It's not like we didn't trade Butler for guys that are going to be free agents, next year. We got guys that we can actually, hope we can form them to build around Cat and Wiggins. And
the bottom line is we're only going to go as far as Cat and Wiggins take us with their contracts. So I thought that was another upside aspect to the trade, is getting 2 guys that fit well next to those 2, and I believe those 2 do very well.
Right.
And I also don't think, Thibs wanted to give up on a playoff shot. His best shot at getting to the playoffs wasn't getting 4 first-round draft picks from Houston.
Right.
Jefferson or Richardson might have helped, but who knows if that was even on the table. This is the closest thing to keep you in playoff contention was what we got. So
honestly, I think Richardson and Covington could be an argument. Richardson's probably, well, I shouldn't say probably, he is, a more fluid, talented offensive player, and he does have some potential defensively, but Covington's already an all NBA defensive player and a nice 3-point shooter. And, I think there's an argument to be made that they're, comparable.
Isn't that kind
depending on what you're looking for?
Isn't that kind of what Thibs has always been looking for, 3-and-D guys?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Covington is. He's a 3-and-D guy.
All right, so what's funny, guys, is we actually have a syllabus that we're going through, kind of like an outline on what to talk about during a podcast. I want, Pat, on the next bullet point here, I want you to read this sentence verbatim.
Thoughts on Joel Embiid having issues with Jimmy Butler?
Right, and then the next one.
It says, don't need to talk about this because he's no longer our problem.
All right, so thoughts on the Thibs firing, Pat, go.
Next question.
So let me ask you, who's to blame for the Thibs firing?
Glenn Taylor.
Who's to blame for the TJ? Who's to blame for the Thibs firing?
The guys around Glenn Taylor. The more I read, I think sounds like the more I read, it's a low attendance ticket sales type issue.
So it's definitely a business decision.
It just doesn't make any sense. How do you fire a guy coming off a 20-point win against the Lakers?
I also read something on Twitter that said he was upset about the Atlanta loss at home. If you're that upset about the Atlanta loss at home, why don't you fire him after the Atlanta loss? I could justify that. That was a terrible loss.
Yep.
But you let him continue to coach for another 3-4 games. We win 2 in a row by basically 20 points.
Well, I don't think Thibs instructed the players to miss free throws in that Atlanta game, though.
Well, I mean...
It's the truth.
I mean, Wiggins was
says
5 of 12
free throws.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that was probably the worst free throw shooting game we've ever had in the history of the franchise.
Do you think Thibs got a backlash from our fan base in the Minnesota market here? Do you think that he got an unwanted backlash because he's not one of us and he's from Chicago? Well, he's not even from Chicago. He just coached Chicago.
Coached at Chicago, yeah. And by all accounts,
He actually
the Chicago
was an
fan
assistant
base
coach for
loves
the
him.
Wolves in the late 80s, early 90s.
I didn't know that.
He was.
That's awesome.
And then he went to... He was in Boston with KG and Pierce and Allen.
But
I don't think it's a one of us issue. How can I put this? I feel like we kind of have along the lines of a one of us issue. I think we kind of don't like the boat rocked. I think we kind of want everything to be like kumbaya. We're comfortable when everything's if there's issues, they're not at the surface. And I feel like Thibs kind of had that, that gruff exterior, that kind of that grating, yelling. I don't know. I just feel like that's coaching. Like, I don't know. There's different styles, but
That's his style.
right. And I feel like it's been effective. We had the longest drought. I can't remember if it was the first or the second longest playoff drought in
14 years, right?
Professional sports.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you can't give him all the credit, but he had a big, obviously a huge role in ending that streak. And I don't know. There's a lot of criticism about his systems being outdated, which I could take to task. I don't necessarily agree. I mean,
what system though? Like, what do they mean by the system? I want to know. In terms of offensively, I always see people talk about offensive systems, offensive sets. The NBA isn't the motherfucking Spurs anymore with a half-court set with Tim Duncan for, half the game. It is wide open, 5-out basketball, take fucking 3 feet beyond the arc three-point shots, get offensive rebounds, kick it back out, pick and roll.
I think that's the issue, though, is like we kind of play a half-court offense, and we do a lot with Towns in the post.
Well, yeah, we have Towns.
And all the teams that everybody loves right now just, throw the ball around the three-point line and take threes. That's what people want. And, I don't think that...
Then go to the Maple Grove Community Center and watch the bums on the court below you when you're on the upper deck, and you're looking through the window.
I mean, I was one of them bums at one point, too.
I feel like one of the common criticisms is they want the Wolves to take more threes, and I just don't think our personnel suits that. We have some okay three-point shooters, but, at the end of the day, we're not the Warriors. Like, everybody can't be the Warriors.
I mean, that's the expectations of the fans, though. I mean, they want us to be the Warriors. There's only one Warriors team in professional basketball. I mean,
and they always win.
I mean, I guess you can throw Houston in there too, because they're basically a 3-point shooting team. But there's 2 of those teams in the league,
right?
I mean, not even your best teams in the East. I mean, I don't consider Milwaukee a 3-point shooting team.
I would say Houston's offense is let Harden dribble and go draw a foul, and we don't have a Harden type. So.
I mean,
with a 4-step back.
Yeah, I mean, when you get 27 free throws in a game, that day was more than 5 or 6 teams total.
And then you cry about a foul against Golden State.
Yeah. Well, the refs have been terrible this year. I mean, the
refs don't even get it. The NBA is controlling the refs. The fans have to see this, right? Aren't they?
I think controlling. I don't.
I mean, they're obviously letting the stars do what they want.
They are.
It's a star
instructed to.
It's a star-driven league. At the end of the day, it's a star-driven league.
They're probably instructed to give the benefit of the doubt.
I think about this a lot. I have a lot of criticism with the NBA. There's a lot I don't enjoy about it. But then I step outside myself, and I'm like, I'm a big NBA fan in a quote-unquote small market. So, I mean, I don't expect, my voice to be heard by anybody. The league is, extremely successful.
Dude, on a side note, Clemson is absolutely murdering Alabama right now. It's not even close. This playing secondary two drives ago, literally just blew his Achilles, and the safety was nowhere to be found for Alabama.
Dabo Swinney probably just paid his next recruit just a second ago too.
So
I just think there's probably 7 or 8 teams that really are a driving force in the popularity of the league. And kind of the teams outside of that are starting to feel kind of like AAA baseball teams. And
you know what the national guys are going to tell you?
Our main objective is to it feels like to develop a guy into a star and then get him to one of the coasts. That's how it's been going. It happened with Love, Garnett, Butler,
and the national guys are going to tell you. Too bad, deal with it, small market.
They're doing it. The whole focus on Anthony Davis right now is the media trying to get him out of New Orleans.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a fucking joke. I'm sick and tired of the coast always running everything.
And where is Anthony Davis going? Lakers or Celtics?
Hopefully he stays home.
Well, I'm saying that's where the rumors have him going. they're the teams with the most assets to trade for him right now.
Right.
So it's probably where he's going to
Probably Kyle Kuzma, actually.
Yeah,
you guys bring it up.
Especially the Lakers. They're the team with the most assets, but then all the trades that I see, it's like, well, Josh Hart and a second-round pick can get Anthony Davis. Just these rip-off trades that are just going to get superstars.
And to tie that in with the Thibs thing today is, I was thinking about this a lot. Like, we feel like a AAA team, and they're getting rid of Thibs because of ticket sales. I feel like everything the Wolves do moving forward is going to be centered around ticket sales, and they're not seriously going to try to win. It sounds like a AAA baseball team. Like, it's going to be all like, Prince night and, bobblehead night, and that's the way it's going. I feel like it's just going to be like, basically we're a AAA basketball team.
You had a good quote earlier today. It said, "Welcome to Twins territory."
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, the Twins haven't been serious about winning. And what do you do when you have to drum up interest? You bring old guys back or people you're familiar with. It's like a blanket. And you're not serious about winning, and that's how Target Field turns into a huge outdoor bar. That's all it is, basically. It's just a huge outdoor bar.
I mean, think about
all we hear about every year is the new gourmet foods that are coming. You don't hear about any free agent signing. You hear about the new cheeseburger.
I mean, think about it.
We just signed Anthony Cheeseburger.
The Twins, like last year, their big moves were we hired Michael Kadire, Torrey Hunter, and LaTroy Hawkins to be a part of our front office.
And you want to know the saddest thing is the Wolves, I feel like, are kind of going down this path. And what's the Twins, what's their big selling point the past few years? Their whole marketing campaign has been centered around summer, like sunshine.
Outdoors.
Like, come get in the sunshine and have a beer. It's like, the Wolves don't even have sunshine. Like, your ticket to winter isn't going to work. Like, no one's coming to Target Center to enjoy the winter.
I mean, but it sounds like they want to bring the country club back. I mean, Randy Whitman's been rumored.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're doing that to sell a couple extra tickets. And it's like, it's not worth it.
When Kevin McHale's not at a Trump rally, I think he'd be all right to, come general manager of this team.
Yeah,
you didn't hear about that in Duluth?
No, I didn't.
There was just a picture of him. It's just funny.
My big question is everybody that could not stand Thibs, and apparently that's the reason we had trouble selling tickets, did any of those people wake up this morning and buy Timberwolves tickets?
Nope.
Now that Ryan Saunders is the coach?
No, not one.
No,
but the media's happy.
Right.
The media is super happy because now they get access, and they're not going to force feed us bullshit to piss fans off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're not going to. It's an absolute joke how our media handles the Timberwolves and the Twins, and then you look at the Vikings, it's completely different. It's like three completely different sets of how you handle a team. Why is that?
Well, I think football is extremely popular, and I think part of it is they only have 16 games a year, so it's kind of a little bit easier.
Well, also, I think all fan bases go into the season thinking they got a shot. I mean, that's the main selling point of the NFL.
Right.
Every team starts at 0-0, and everybody has a shot.
Right.
In the NBA, you can start the season, and I already know the Timberwolves aren't going to go.
Golden State's going to win because they got Durant.
Well, yeah, the last 4 years it's been Golden State versus Cleveland.
They have 3 of the top 10 players, 2 of the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, and then in baseball, you got your 2 juggernauts that spend $250 million, 3 juggernauts now with the Dodgers, and you already know who's going to make the playoffs.
But why don't the Twins spend any money? They're the richest owners in baseball.
Because they're selling sunshine and beer, man. They're
sunshine seats with beer.
Yeah, and boomstick.
There is if you guys go to a Twins game, it's actually kind of fun because you don't watch the game. You have some beer, you look around, you look at the big screen, and they show how good some shitty player's been.
Sounds like a bar.
Yeah. How do you feel about? What do you think the players? What do you think they're feeling right now after not only the Jimmy Butler trade, but also the Thibs firing off of a win, by the way, by 20? Was it 22?
Yeah,
sounds right. Like that.
I think it was 22 against the Lakers.
Yeah, LeBron-less Lakers. I mean, the media will point that out.
I think probably it was surprising. Like, I was definitely shocked. Like, I couldn't believe what I was reading. I mean, obviously there was a big probability that this was the road it was going down as far as Thibs getting fired, but still I feel like it was a surprise. So I feel like the players had to be surprised as well. I feel like maybe the younger guys probably, there might be a little bit of relief, not constantly getting yelled at. I personally don't have that big of a problem with it.
I mean, we grew up in a different time.
That's true.
Sure.
That's true. Like, I know we talked about, like, I know it's apples and oranges, but I know my high school baseball coach lit into me, and I could not stand him. I hated it. But, I got a little bit older in life, and I was like, man, that's exactly what I needed, and I appreciated it. And that's kind of my point with Thibs. Like, I mean, it's not always, it wasn't always pretty or, full of joy, but I feel like if we would have stayed the course, like, it definitely would have, I think it would have been beneficial to Wiggins and Cat in the long run.
I mean, going back on the way we kind of grew up, I mean, when I got yelled at by a coach or whatever, it was basically my mission then to shut that coach up.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I was called lazy or whatever, and then all of a sudden the next play, I mean, I'm doing something, to shut the coach up, to keep his mouth shut. These players nowadays, I don't want to say they're babies because
it's tough to compare like our high school experiences with professional athletes. It's just, worlds apart when you're getting paid a ton of money for it. But, I don't think Thibs was like overly abrasive. I think he just wanted it done his way. And, I guess we could argue if people think if it was a successful, way to go about it. But at the end of the day, I feel like a coach should have that right to have his players doing it the way he wants it done.
I think it's just a generational thing. I mean, we grew up with our parents and grandparents basically telling us they walked to school in 3 feet of snow uphill both ways. I mean, and how hard it was back then and how we were babies, and now we're kind of...
And even within that, like, different players, respond differently to different coaches. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables there. So, I don't know. I don't think those guys being young... I don't think they can just take that. An older coach can't relate to them. I feel like that's overrated, and I've been hearing that a lot relating to the players, the millennial type player, the younger players. Like, I don't understand what does that ensure success. Like a coach that can relate to younger guys. I don't think so, in my opinion.
I mean, I think it can kind of help. I mean, just in a little bit.
Is it a reason to fire somebody though?
No, I don't think so. I think in my little bit of coaching experience that I have, it's...
Which, by the way, why don't you give that plug? Who do you coach?
I mean, I'm going to Patrick Henry High School this year, but I used to coach Minneapolis South baseball.
Okay.
But my experience is the head coach is a dick because he's hard on us, but, Pat, you're cool because you kind of just explain it to us and try to not necessarily fit in, because I didn't want to be buddies with these kids, but it was more like I am more into the stuff that they're in, so I can put certain things a certain way to get through to them. I think there is something to that, because an older guy is always going to be that harder.
Doesn't it seem like Ryan Saunders was perfect for that role, though? Kind of that good cop, bad cop dynamic.
Absolutely.
Especially somebody that could relate to the younger players, putting him up as the head coach. It might work. Who am I to say that it won't work? I'm skeptical. I feel like he has a lack of head coaching experience, obviously, and he's very young.
When you say lack of, let's go over this real quick. His head coaching experience. How much does he have?
I just, from my knowledge, he is at 0. I did a quick Google search, and all I could find was he was assistant coach for his dad for all his NBA stops, and that's about the extent of it.
And then
I think he was like some kind of graduate assistant under Tubby Smith with the Gophers as well. So, but obviously
he's always been an assistant.
From my knowledge, he has never been a head coach.
Do you guys know how easy it is to be an assistant?
Yeah.
It's easy.
Oh, yeah.
Because at that point, you can play good cop.
Yeah.
And also, that next person up has to be, no matter what level, I don't care what you're talking about, they have to be a leader of men or women, depending on the sport, obviously. But you have to be a leader. You have to set an example. You have to be the one taking the brunt of everything. Your name ends up in the newspaper. Nobody gives a shit about the assistant coach.
Right.
The assistant coach actually probably in the long run has more influence on a lot of these players, but nobody cares about them because their name does not show up in the papers. How is Ryan Saunders going to respond when his name's in the paper with a negative outcome in terms of how the team is doing, or
I don't even know if that's going to happen, honestly. I feel like he has, a lot of
protection.
Yeah, he does. And I feel like anything that happens this year is all going to be pretty much put on the shoulders of Thibs.
Well, he was put in a bad spot.
Right.
Thibs.
I can already see it. He's gonna get a clean slate no matter what. Even if they fail to make the playoffs, you're what did you expect to happen? It's kind of both sides of the coin. He's young and inexperienced, so if he does well, it's gonna be holy shit, and if he doesn't do well, it's well, that's what we expected. But what more could you have expected? So he's really in a nice spot, I feel like.
Yeah, he's in a lose-lose situation, or a win-win situation.
When Thibs was hired here, what was his contract?
5 years.
5 years, 10 a year, right?
30, I think, maybe.
I thought it was.
I thought he got 6.
Because he got.
I can't remember.
Well, because he got the president of basketball operations and the coach, so wasn't it?
I want to say 5 years, $30 million, but maybe
was that it? Okay. Without doing any research on all that.
So did you guys hear any backlash about his money?
No, not at first. Now everybody, because everybody is so fire happy. Everybody's cool with just spending, owner's money.
This dude, Taylor fired him and had to pay him $20 million to leave.
I know.
It makes no sense. Because since the Jimmy Butler trade, how good?
5 years, $40 million.
So 8 a year.
Yeah.
Jeez.
To do both jobs.
Yeah.
So he's getting 8 a year, which means that we had to pay him
probably 20 to walk away because the season's half over.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me Taylor was willing to spend $20 million on a guy to walk away for ticket sales?
I guess. I have not. I'm one of the people that have not gone to a Timberwolves game yet this year. I have no idea how attendance is. I watch every game on TV.
I went to one. It was sprinkled in. There was probably 10,000 people there.
Now, another thing is, they expected a sellout yesterday. Now, the tickets were sold because it would be a sellout regardless because the tickets were sold because everybody thought LeBron was going to play. How many of those sold tickets actually showed up, though? Did he show up yet, or did Taylor show up yesterday? And there's tons of empty seats.
Taylor wasn't at the game yesterday.
Oh, he wasn't?
No,
okay,
he was in Florida.
Usually he's on the sideline.
Yeah, he wasn't yesterday.
Okay.
I don't,
if you bought tickets for yesterday and you were rich, would you show up to see not LeBron play?
You asking me personally because I'm a Timberwolves fan.
Not you personally, but how many of those tickets were motivated because LeBron were coming?
Half of those tickets were probably sold because LeBron was going to be, if not more.
Exactly. So how many of those fans didn't show up?
I had people on Facebook that were posting that I know personally, just friends of mine, posting, I don't want to go see this game. Who wants to buy my tickets?
One thing I wanted to get into, though, that is along these lines is I'm a diehard Timberwolves fan. I try to at least go to 6, 7, 8 games a year. I've gone to probably 3 this year. There's been multiple times where I've looked at tickets and I'm just after they made the playoffs last year, they raised ticket prices. Mm-hmm. And after you had a 13-year drought and you made the playoffs once and you raised ticket prices, it's man. And I look at tickets sometimes and I'm just I should be able to get a lower level ticket for $60, but you can't. And I'm like, I'm just going to watch it on TV. Like, why do I want to go through the hassle of driving down there, parking, it's cold. Like, I'd rather just sit on my couch and watch it and not spend $150 if I want to take a friend or, you know, my girlfriend or whoever. Like,
Right.
that's a lot of money.
You might be spending $150 to go there by yourself.
Right.
I mean, a lower level ticket, you're looking at just $85 to $100
The last
probably.
game I went to, I sat third row in the upper deck and I paid $50 a piece, and I was like, man, it's $100.
Right.
It's not a small amount of money. Like, I feel like their tickets are pretty pricey, and they kind of sit around scratching their head why the stadium isn't full. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a huge Wolves fan, but I'm like, do you guys have the cachet to raise prices like that and charge that much? I don't think that's Thibs' fault. I think it's a business decision that you made that isn't working out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a business decision on why they fired him, or something we'll never find out about that's behind
It's
the
because
scenes.
Thibs don't want to hear nobody's bullshit. He's old school. He's going to run it the way he runs it. Not only that, but he was hired, I bet, on the premises that he was going to run it the way he runs it. You know what I mean? He is who he is. He told Taylor up front, hey, you're going to pay me, and I'm going to run it the way I run it. And if you don't like it, fire me, because you're going to owe me $40 million fucking dollars.
And I've been going to Wolves fans my entire life. It's the same process for every game. Crunch comes out, bangs a drum. It's the same music. It's the same little sound drops. It's the same introductions. It's the same halftime shows. It's the same during breaks, firing T-shirts into the crowd. Like, it's just repetitive. It's like you feel like you're in Groundhog Day.
So what's funny is they've had Coolio this year at halftime.
These washed up rappers.
Right, and then they
Just had Bismarck.
Bismarck fucking You like what are you talking about?
They had Vanilla
This dude-
Ice last year.
They had Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, he was there.
This dude's still performing that song.
Yeah. Yeah, man. He made
Man,
a,
hey, I don't listen.
I mean, you're not going to get Beyonce to do a Wolves halftime.
And I get it. I'm not gonna hate on Vanilla Ice for trying to make his money.
I'm not going to lie. I'd rather watch the chick flip balls on the top of her head.
That's what I'm saying. Just bringing a regular ass.
I just feel like Timberwolves games are this. I've seen the movie, you know, like I want to watch a game, obviously, and every game's different. But when you go to Target Center, it feels like every other game I've ever been to.
Right.
There's no unique experience. There's no like.
I do like the upgrades.
I don't see any like.
Like the Target Center upgrades.
You know, like some teams really focus on like fan experience. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like they've put enough like resources into that. Like they kind of just.
Well, it's not like they do what they Hall of Fame.
No, I know. It's just like they do what they've always done, and I guess that kind of trickles down into who they're looking to hire now too. It's like I don't know. I just feel like they're completely stuck in their ways.
Now, this is going to be my last Timberwolves question for you guys, and then we're going to move on to the Vikings. Here's my question: is Glenn Taylor a lame duck owner?
In what sense?
That's
Is
just
he
the
just
question.
not good at it?
Right.
Yeah. He doesn't know much about basketball.
I appreciate what Taylor did, and he kept the team in Minnesota.
That's why I always kind of like go back and forth with how bad I want to, criticize him. It's like the Wolves wouldn't even be here without him, but we're so far down the road. It's like he'd make some horrible decisions, in my opinion.
And now that we don't really have a threat of the team moving for another, 13, 15 years, however long it is, I mean, I wouldn't be sad if he decided to sell.
I don't feel like he has much of a backbone. I feel like he kind of like flaps in the wind with the people that are around him, telling him what's best. He doesn't really, put his foot down and make those decisions on his own.
I mean, but that's clearly what the fans want. But attendance wasn't up when Flip came back the first time, or his second go around either.
I mean, let's just be honest. The state of Minnesota is a bandwagon basketball state.
Yeah,
like if the Wolves are doing really well, they're going to show up when it's a cool thing to do. When it's like where people want to be seen, they'll show up. But outside of that, I'll give them that. They have a tough job. Like, it's hard to get casual basketball fans in this state. I mean, we have every professional sport, so we're already stretched thin, but at the same time, it's like there's no motivation for anyone to show up there unless, we're doing game 3 against the Rockets last year in the playoffs. The place is on fire. Like, you give them a reason to show up, they're going to show up, but
I think that's just Minnesota in general, too.
Yeah.
Other than the Vikings, because there are only 16 games. Or there's actually, 10 games here?
But, before Moss was here, we had to have corporations
Yeah, you're right.
buy to sell out. So
and then we've had continuous sellouts since, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, I don't want to say caught on, because football's always been, for as long as I can remember, has always been top dog as far as sports go. But
I mean, we're one of the rare markets in the United States that I'd put basketball under hockey as far as fan popularity.
Yeah.
Like the Wolves have a hockey team that's popular to deal with,
but we
at the same time of year.
We also have a bigger market than people give us credit for, because we take over the Dakotas. It's like a tri-state area because they don't have anything. Even some
Iowa.
Yeah, even Iowa. My cousins live in Iowa, and a lot of them are Bears fans, and they're Bulls fans and stuff like that. And I was actually texting with him during the game. He was so pissed off. Anyways, long story longer.
Are they coming to games, though? Out-of-state people?
I think they do.
Okay.
I think they do.
Only because they only have to come 8 times a year.
A lot of those guys.
I'm talking about Wolves.
Wolf? No.
Wolves fans aren't coming from nowhere. Yeah, that's all Twin Cities. I guess we're a bigger football market than basketball market, and yeah, absolutely, we're a bigger hockey market than basketball market.
The Wolves have a lot of disadvantages that people don't talk about a lot. Like, obviously the weather. And like you said, they have hockey to compete with. Like, it's a tough go. Like, I'm not gonna, talk my way around that. Like, they definitely have a big challenge trying to get Target Center full. It's not gonna be easy. I don't think firing Tom Thibodeau does anything to change that, but they got to figure something out.
Well, yeah, people want to watch a winning team. Winning. So when it comes to sports, everybody was like, "Whoa, you gotta have fun." You gotta have fun. Well, dude, the kids gotta have fun. Everybody's gotta have fun. It's always gotta be fun. What's the most fun about sports? Winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it takes a hard-nosed approach and a never die attitude to win. If you befriend the people below you, then it's not even their fault. It's just subconsciously they try to kind of walk on your authority because they don't think you have any, because they're close with you. You know what I mean? If you make that guy run wind sprints for 20 minutes until he's dead and throwing up, he hates you. But guess what? He has the freaking drive to in a game, and also the gas tank, play for 48 minutes. It is what it is. It's people don't like hard-nosed coaches. But why does hard-nosed coaches always win? I guess always is probably an over-exaggeration.
I mean, you're probably looking at Bill Belichick as being the hardest nose and looking at that success.
I'm not just looking at him. There's plenty of hard-nosed coaches. Do you think that Mike Krzyzewski just lets his team slide in practice?
No,
I don't think Nick Saban does either.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about college.
Yeah, it's different.
College kids, though.
Well, let's take it to the pro level. Other than Golden State, who basically raked up all the talent throughout the NBA,
Steve Kerr will walk away he'll leave at halftime and let Draymond Green draw plays.
Yeah, and cry about everything else too,
and then
punch people in the dick.
No, he kicks them in there.
Is that what it is?
He punched somebody in the dick.
No, just kick.
Okay.
You're right. I'm kind of taking a football coach mentality, and I think maybe it's because it's a bigger team. With basketball, you're still dealing with only
15 players.
Yeah, tops.
Yeah,
and it's easier to I guess have a personal relationship, mold and impact their lives when there's only 15 people under you. When there's 55, 70, 80 with practice squad and everything else, I guess is a different kind of approach.
What are your thoughts on basketball players from AAU up have always been, because I mean there's a limited number of basketball players in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
there's basically an unlimited number of football players in the NFL. I don't know too many NFL players that have been given everything basically their entire life and been told they're the best. Basketball players from AAU all the way up are basically given whatever they want and told that they're the best in the world. So to me, it doesn't seem like they have to work as hard because they've already been given all this stuff. Where football players, it seems like they have to work to get to where, they need to be. I mean,
they got dog in them. That's the difference.
Well, I mean, it's a physical sport. You better have.
Right. Well, some players don't have dog in them in the NFL. It just is what it is.
It's kind of rare, though.
We watched Jadeveon Clowney running around people all day long in the last playoff game.
Those are guys we call kickers.
Well, is basketball players softer than the NFL players? Yes, I think so. But so what? Because it's a finesse game. It's a different game. I'm not going to fault them for that. I'm not going to get on my 1990s bandwagon and sit here and talk about how physical the game was back then and what Michael Jordan had to go through. Blah, blah, blah. You guys want to say LeBron James is the GOAT? I couldn't care less because he's basically 1B to 1A when it comes to Michael Jordan or vice versa. You know what I mean? NBA players, though, nowadays, most of them probably are softer than they used to be.
I mean, but can you think of a time where Thibs ever got in a guy's face and screamed him down? People criticize his yelling, and all he does is just yell what he wants to have happen on the court.
He's just yelling.
And I don't think that's out of line as a coach.
Right.
You just want them to do what you want done. Isn't that the definition of a coach? Kind
of like what you were talking about earlier when was it a Kogi that was just dribbling and ball handling for no reason for half the shot clock?
He was kicking the ball all over the place, and I mean, I like him too, but he's got a long way to go offensively. He's just kind of a borderline mess on the offensive end. He's good in transition and broken plays. There's definitely positive aspects to his game, and I like him. I think he's got a bright future, but right now, I mean, if the guy has the ball, if he dribbles more than twice, it's a problem. His jump shot is a problem, but to what you're saying, he's dribbling. He's trying to drive, halfway drive, and then he changed his mind and he started dribbling out to the 3-point line, and he's kicking the ball everywhere, and he kind of just shoveled it to Wiggins while the shot clock is winding down, and
put Wiggins in a bad spot. So then all the lame fans, the people who don't know what they're watching, fuck Wiggins.
Yeah, but I mean that possession, it ended in a turnover. He basically kicked it out of bounds past Wiggins or whatever.
Right.
And Thibodeau yells, you could hear in the microphone, he goes, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, it's exactly how I feel. What are you doing? We're trying to win a game. It's not acceptable. I know you're a rookie and everything, but it's man, you know your limitations. You cannot be dribbling all the way across the court while the shot clock's running down and then just shovel it. It's a learning situation. It's he shouldn't just throw his hands and he'll get him next time. No, it's a teachable moment. He's frustrated. It's good. He's being a coach. What's wrong with being a coach?
Nothing. And there's a lot of coaching staffs in the NFL that are actually hiring psychologists on their teams now, sports psychologists. And what they do is they kind of go through how your confidence is, how you should feel during certain plays. Should you really be down on yourself after a missed shot, for example, in the NBA? No, you got to forget about that shit. Move on. It's over.
Maybe that's why Thibs was fired, because he didn't, be proactive in hiring that.
I don't see us being proactive in hiring that at all on the Timberwolves.
No, we're going to hire somebody we've already had. Sidney Lowe probably needs a job.
Right.
Randy Brewer might be looking for a job. I don't know.
Chris Humphreys off a reality show. Who knows? And
by no means do I want to sound like I'm I was all gung-ho about Tom Thibodeau. I thought he was going to be fired at the end of the year if we didn't make the playoffs. That's exactly what I was just going to say.
And it's whatever. I couldn't care less.
You
but
could
why did
see
he win?
You could see it. The fans were upset. Nobody was engaged. But I don't think a coach is going to get fans in the stadium. But, we all saw that.
Winning gets fans in the arena.
Absolutely. And,
in the stadium.
last year,
the rink.
Last year, I think there was a lot of fans there. We went to the playoffs. I mean, I don't know about any other, Timberwolves fan out there, but I was sick and tired of not making the playoffs at all. I mean, it was kind of refreshing to see a guy come in, and maybe it was his old guys, but he made a move and got us to the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, you got to give the guy some credit for that, and I don't care that they traded Levine. I don't care that they traded Dunn. I don't care that they drafted Markkanen and traded him to the Bulls. Right. I was glad that we actually made the playoff. We had something to play for. I actually saw a playoff game, and I haven't seen a playoff game since I was 24.
Right. Now, what's funny?
And it was a year that we didn't have to, automatically stop caring or worrying about what pick we're going to get after 20 games. Like, wow, it was refreshing. Like, after so long, it's like, man.
Yeah, I didn't have to worry about us being projected to get the third pick and have 4 teams jump us in the lottery because we've never moved up in the history of our organization.
Yeah.
I mean, not 4, but 3.
I was sick of having lottery night be the biggest thing a Wolves fan had to look forward to.
I remember one time I was sitting with you guys downtown. We were at some bar that was actually outside. We were watching and waiting for the Wolves to pick.
That was like a draft viewing party, wasn't
it?
Right,
yeah. And I was sitting there thinking, we just came off of like a 22-win season, and no matter who we draft right now, we're probably going to win 20 games next year because of the country club, I guess, attitude that Glenn Taylor has and who he has in charge and what we've been doing for the last couple of years. Do you think it's the media that's getting these people fired, or do you think it's the fans?
I think this was actually kind of both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the media didn't particularly care for Thibs, maybe because he didn't tell them what they wanted to play. Yeah. But the fans didn't seem like they were all into it either. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there was only a few supporters.
And they're really going to get on board with a guy who's never coached one game in his life as a head coach?
Sounds like it already.
Not one game.
Well, everybody has that nostalgia for 2004, and his dad was a coach, so they make that kind of connection, and it's it's their blanket and their pacifier that helps them rest easy.
Saunders is a good coach.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
The dead one.
Flip was a good coach.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Ryan Saunders might end up being a great coach. He might. Well, I mean, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe. But as of right now, I don't really know if I want my team that's hovering around 500 is 10th in the Western Conference, only a couple games out of a playoff spot, getting handed to a 32-year-old coach that has no experience in head coaching.
And in the NBA, they are ranked what since the trade? Offense.
I think it was 10th.
10th defensively and 12th offensively.
That's what it was. 12th offensively.
That's a playoff team.
Yeah, and they're 15 and 12.
What the fuck are we doing?
With injuries, Rose, Teague, and Covington. That's three of your best 6 players have been in and out of the lineup the past week and a half.
Do you guys feel like we're the only ones who think this way?
If you look at Twitter, I mean, there's a couple people out there that I've seen that have been like, why are we handing it over to this kid?
I think Twitter is a big driving force nowadays on how people think. There's kind of this little group of I don't know what to call them. I don't know, kind of guys that do blogs or podcasts. They're really into analytics, younger people, and I'm definitely not going to dismiss that. I know they have some points. They're definitely into analytics more than I am. I'm not super into analytics. I enjoy sports for what they are. I don't really like making it math, but that's just me personally. I think a lot of people kind of, they look at Thibs as an outdated kind of coach, and it's I don't know. I feel like that kind of, being as the Wolves have kind of a very casual fan base, I feel like they kind of take their cues from people that talk about it on Twitter. And there's guys that cover the team that I know for a fact are very influenced by Twitter. I see it every day.
Right.
I'm on Twitter a lot, and I follow the Wolves, and I see that correlation. The guys that cover the Wolves get a lot of what I'm not going to say they can't think for themselves, but a lot of what they write is kind of like constructed around what Twitter is saying.
Right.
I think a lot
they do it for fucking clicks.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's a lot of useful information on Twitter. And you know, the one thing that really stood out to me is when Derrick Rose had his 50-point game. I know for a fact Jim Peterson is big in Wolves Twitter. Like, he follows it, you know. He puts a lot of stock into it. And when we signed Derrick Rose, there was a lot of, like, backlash, especially on Twitter, about that civil rape case that he had. And people really did not want him here. And after Rose had that 50-point game, like, in the aftermath when everybody's celebrating it, Jim Peterson kind of alluded to that case and, like, how he was never found guilty of anything. And the national media kind of picked up on that. Like, national Twitter picked up on that. And they're like, why would you bring that up in that moment, you know, where the guy's, like, kind of on top of the world for a night, at least the NBA world. And it's like, I feel like there's, like, this small group of people that tweet about the Wolves that have kind of, like, a lot of power in how the team is viewed right now. Right. And they were definitely against Thibs. And I feel like that was part of it. Like, there's a lot of stock put into Twitter opinions right now.
I do think that us three here are not your typical Minnesota fan in general. I think Minnesota fans in general are, the second there's a little bit of adversity or, you know, problems or whatever, it's automatically, let's fire that person.
Yeah.
Where I think us three are, you know, let's see this out, you know, for the rest of the season. Let's see it out next season. Let's give them the opportunity to fix it. I mean,
not only that, but would you consider, what's their record?
The Wolves?
Yeah.
19-21.
Would you consider that adversity?
No, not really. But this is the same organization that fired Dwayne Casey when he was 20-20.
Why? We always got to get the country club in here. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. So anything closing you guys want to say about the Wolves?
No, just sounds like all the names that we're seeing about, you know, general manager, vice president of basketball operations and coaches are basically people that used to play here, have some sort of ties here.
I mean, obviously I'm in the extreme minority. I was kind of more of a Thibs fan than a hater. I didn't really want to see him go. I thought we were kind of in the process of righting this ship. I don't personally have anything against Ryan Saunders. I'm not a huge fan of giving somebody this much
off a last name.
Yeah. And am I saying he's a bad coach? I have no idea. I'm not a huge fan of giving somebody this role without any, previous experience or qualifications.
We have no idea.
Yeah, he has no previous experience or qualifications. So I don't know. Like, I guess I'm in the minority that thought they were kind of righting the ship, and they were, especially the way Cat's playing. I thought they were, they had a decent shot to get up in the 7th, 8th seed. So that's what I wanted. I guess it could still happen. I'm not too optimistic now, but I guess I'm going to give him a shot and see what he's got.
Right. Pat, what do you think about, the season in general for the Vikings and who's to blame for the outcome?
I mean, obviously the season didn't go as planned. So, I mean, if I was to grade out the season, it'd probably be a C, about right where they finished, 8-7-1.
Right.
It's a disappointment. I think fans in general had an unrealistic expectation, and I fell into that unrealistic expectation as well. The second we signed Kirk Cousins, figuring, we went to the NFC Championship last year. We just signed a quarterback that's better than the one we had, and we would automatically take that next step. So thinking back on it, knowing that we got a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator,
a dead coach.
Yeah, a coach that passes away, before the season starts, an offensive line that is worse than the year before. I just think we probably had unrealistic expectations, but my blame.
So yeah, if you were to rank the blame, between Zimmer, Rick Spielman, Kirk Cousins, and the offensive line, How would you rank them in order?
Well, out of starting from the bottom, I'd rank Kirk Cousins 4th on that list. Signing a quarterback to $84 million, I guess, like I said, you have an expectation that we could possibly take the next step, but I also think that our offensive line did him a lot of disservice.
So that's 3?
The offensive line is 3. Now, back on Cousins again, I think he had a successful season. He obviously has, this stigma about how he can't beat teams over 500. He doesn't win, nationally televised games. He's, never won a playoff game or whatever. I still think he puts up numbers. He, got Thielen and Diggs both to 1,000 yards. Did they both have 100 catches?
Yeah.
Okay, they both had 100 catches. He had a new offensive coordinator that was trying to run an RPO type, run pass option type offense, and I think he's clearly a quarterback that is more suited for like a play action running type offense. Which Shermer, if he didn't get that head coaching job in New York, I think that he would have been a better fit for Cousins than DeFilippo was, but. Like I said, Cousins is 4th on that list. Third, I would actually probably put Zimmer. I think that the team basically runs on how he expresses his emotions. If he's upset, the team falls apart. If he's just kind of quiet and just, even-tempered Mike Zimmer, the team's fine. But the second he shows some sort of negative emotion, I think the team kind of falls apart and gets down on themselves. And, I don't think you should be calling out your offensive coordinator and telling him you need to run the ball more. You didn't hire DeFilippo to be a power running offensive coordinator. You hired him to run the offense that basically killed your defense in the NFC Championship game. So then my second is the offensive line. The offensive line was terrible. I do not think that they are not fixable. I think if you can sign Nick Easton back and put him at guard and then draft another guard or sign a free agent, I think we would be fine. I think Elflein is fine in the middle, even though the analytical numbers or whatever don't necessarily show that. But I think he was also compensating for the terrible play by both of our guards. I think Reef is fine. He was killed by, Hughes with Buffalo, and he was killed by Khalil Mack, which everybody gets killed by those two guys. So I'm not really too worried about him. Ryan O'Neal, I think he's fine. He was said to be a project at the beginning of the year, and I think he actually performed above what you would expect from a project offensive lineman. The majority of the blame, I believe, goes on Rick Spielman. I think the simple fact that, he is the whistleblower when it comes to personnel on this team. I know him and Zimmer probably talk a lot, and of course he wants to get players that Zimmer wants. But the fact that he did not address the offensive line in the draft when everybody said he should, I think that's a bad decision on his part to go after a 5'8", 5'9" cornerback because Zimmer likes cornerbacks and depth, Your most glaring need was offensive line at the end of the NFC Championship game, and I think by not addressing that, you put the team behind the 8 ball.
Now, in terms of TJ, what do you think about, if we were to rank Zimmer, Spielman, Cousins, and the offensive line? Because we all clearly believe that these are the 4 main contributors to the success of the team. Right? I mean, obviously Thielen and Diggs and the defense, they all did their job. At the end of the day, no matter what you say about the defense, there was times where Zimmer might have got out-schemed, whatever. That defense was still ranked top 5 in the league, top 3. What are they? They're the best on third down conversions, which
all until that last game.
TJ, what do you feel about those 4 and Maybe you can allude to why people focus on $84 million. I don't know why people focus on that.
The more I think about it, I think you kind of can just throw those in a hat and pick whichever one you want, and you can put it in that order. The way I kind of look at it is, I think our offense just as a whole lacks direction. Even as Pat alluded to with the draft, I think that plays in it as well. I think Zimmer obviously is a defensive coach, and that's kind of the way that we've built our team, with that at the forefront in the minds of our, personnel decisions. I think that when Zimmer was hired, the way it was probably laid out was that he was just going to handle the defense, and the offensive coordinator was going to kind of be the de facto head coach of the offense. It was kind of solely his responsibility. And I think that's coming to a head now as far as not working. I think we hired DeFilippo and kind of really didn't give him, I don't think we really had a clear direction that we wanted to head towards with him in charge. I think we kind of hit a rough patch, and Zimmer decided that it was time to get involved when that kind of has never really been the way that the thing was supposed to go.
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of Zimmer, actually. Now that you guys bring it up. If I rank it, is Spielman probably the worst problem? Yeah, he's the worst problem. The guy's been here for what, 10 years? He's got a lot of good picks.
2012 is when he was officially hired as a GM.
So 6 years, technically. He's had a lot of really good picks. He's also had a lot of picks where it's like, why are you using draft picks on kickers? You know what I mean? Why are we, if we do need linemen, wouldn't you just stock up on linemen and have them fight it out to see who's best? Pat, you alluded to it earlier. When it comes to football players, doesn't it seem like they have to go through more adversity and they have to work hard and they have to do all this other stuff? How many non-drafted or 7th round or 6th round picks have we seen, rise to the cream of the crop? I don't have any names offhand, obviously. I mean, John Randall, for one, but that's just because I'm a Minnesota fan. But there's tons of them out there.
Yeah. Brady.
The best quarterback in the history of the NFL.
Peyton Manning's that, but
yeah,
I just don't think we get all of our boats rowing in the right direction offensively. We kind of have this jumbled, fly by the seat of our pants plan. We decide one thing and then it kind of doesn't work. So now we're going to change it right now, personnel wise, scheme wise.
Let's start with the O-line, because I actually supported Spielman at the beginning of this year. You guys saw it, man. People were attacking me because we drafted Hughes, and I was supporting Spielman the whole time, because obviously Zimmer and Spielman know the team better than we do as fans. And clearly, as the season went on, the offensive line was a glaring issue, and I was wrong.
Do you think if we spent our first round pick on an offensive lineman, everything would have been fine this year?
Everything? No.
Do you think it would have totally mitigated the problem?
It might have got us one more win, tops.
That makes the playoffs.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And also maybe not wasting our pick on a kicker and just,
re-signing the one that did fine last year.
Kai Forbath, yeah. And maybe using that as a lineman for backup because we had lineman injuries. We are fans. We don't have the luxury of being in the facility. We're not the coach who gets to sit there and watch the film. We don't get to, be around these people or see what their work ethic is or see what type of people they are. But at the end of the day, I was wrong. The lineman, the line, other than Elfline and you guys are obviously for Reef. I'm all for moving Reef to guard and maybe drafting an elite left tackle.
I think you're all for telling Reef to pack his bags and move.
Well, and the only reason why, it's not even Reef's fault. It's because people point at Cousins' freaking money, right? But they don't ever point at anybody else's money. They don't point at Everson Griffin's money. They don't point at Xavier Rhodes' money. They don't point at Riley Reif's money. They don't point at nobody else's money.
I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league, though.
And that's why they get paid the most, because they get touched the ball more than anybody in the league.
They also get the most scrutiny, though.
Right.
Well,
I think he gets. I think Cousins gets a lot of maybe exaggerated scrutiny in this market because of his money and because of we're Midwestern people and we're humble people and we're all for team and blah blah blah. And one person told me on Facebook this year that we should have kept Keenum because he's family. He's family.
Why is he family? Because he did the dumb skull chant on the field when we were lining up for that kick.
He's
that
family.
Extra point.
So we did him a disservice by saying go make $20 million somewhere else.
Denver didn't think he was family.
Denver got rid of him, right?
no.
No, he's still
Not
there.
yet, but
I mean, I'm sure they want
they're
to.
probably looking for a quarterback at this point.
Oh yeah.
And he's getting paid a lot of money. So if we had Keenum, we would have been a 2 to 5 win team, somewhere in that range. But with Cousins, we were a 8 win team with a shitty kicker who could have been just a 9 win team.
I mean, everybody focuses on his $84 million and is like, well, we don't have any money to spend. We had plenty of money in the offseason and giving Kirk Cousins $28 million. We signed Sheldon Richardson to like a $10 million contract for 1 year. I mean, honestly, I don't care that they drafted Hughes. He might end up being a good player. But if you're going to ignore the line in the draft, you need to address them in free agency. And our biggest free agency player that we got on the offensive line was Tom Compton. The only reason why we got him is because he's Kirk Cousins' best friend. I'm good at
Exactly. So
I'm not 100% sure, but the way I kind of remembered is he was kind of on his way out of the league, maybe bouncing around. Wasn't really like any kind of anchor for anybody's line or anything.
Because he's basically in the league just to be somebody's depth.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of fill in when you need to, not expect him to play 16 games, you know? And then you move your best right tackle to guard. So because obviously you have, you know, O'Neal coming in to play guard. I understand it, but then you can't expect this guy to just be great playing out of position.
me knowing the football like I do, I guess I would rather see fans focus on why Kirk Cousins was the most hurried quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl era instead of his money. Maybe let's focus on how he's hurried and how he has happy feet and how, if you look at the beginning of the year, he was an elite passing quarterback, but as time went on and he was getting killed at play after play after play, this guy just folded because his line in front of him was Swiss cheese. And is the O-line a problem? Yes. It's probably the fourth problem because our coach, you know damn well, was telling Spielman, hey, I need defensive guys. I'm a defensive coach, right? And then, man, we couldn't run the ball. We couldn't pass the ball. The quarterback had an average of 2 seconds when he dropped back.
I mean, Dalvin Cook missed a lot of time, too.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as the running game goes.
That's true.
I don't know. I've traditionally been a fan of Spielman. I do feel like this year he may have got a little bit too cocky with a few of those picks. I'm not sure taking a lineman in the first round would have solved everything. I mean, in hindsight now, it probably would have been the way to go. I was a big proponent of drafting Nyheim Hines in the 4th round. I thought he was sitting there for us. I do think we need a pass-catching back. I think a lot of the offense needs to be a little more diversified. I don't want to call us predictable, but I do feel like we relied heavily on just a small group of players, and I think it would do a lot of good if we get a few more players involved. I think a pass-catching running back that can expose linebackers would have been the way to go there.
You mean like re-signing McKinnon?
I mean, he got a lot of money. That was going to be tough.
I know.
But
I didn't want to pay him that much.
Not necessarily re-signing McKinnon, but at least address and get a player that could play like a McKinnon.
Well, I think the Vikings thought Dalvin Cook could be that guy, But
again, can you expect Dalvin Cook coming off of an ACL to be that guy right away? I mean, honestly, Cook didn't look great all year until the last few games of the season. I mean, he never looked like he was completely 100% until
they started running
the
power
last quarter of the game.
Until they started running man-on-man football instead of zone bullshit. I think RPO.
Yeah, I think all the stuff that we're talking about is just goes under the umbrella of the point I was trying to make earlier. It's just like I don't think there's really any, concise, clear direction within the offense. I think they all need to get on the same page and move forward together.
I agree with you.
I mean, during the season, you didn't hear Zimmer going crazy on the sideline when Cousins was throwing for 350 and 3 touchdowns, and we were beating teams.
He didn't care less.
Yeah, he didn't care. I mean, and he didn't care about the way DiFilippo was calling way more passes than he was runs. But then all of a sudden we start maybe getting we start losing a couple games, and then all of a sudden now he wants to focus on us needing to run the ball more.
So you have Zimmer at 2 and Spielman at 1 in terms of
I have
problems.
3.
3?
Yeah.
2 is Cousins?
No, 2 is the line.
4 is Cousins?
Yes.
I have the line at 4 and Cousins at 3. And the reason why is because Cousins is supposed to be an elite quarterback. He missed some throws this year that were glaringly obvious in terms of, just even on film and the announcers showing us and you see the overthrows left and right. I don't know what it is with the overthrows. I think he might be playing it too safe because he doesn't want to get it intercepted. Also, his turnover ratio was it the worst in the league?
He had the most turnovers as a quarterback in the league. But only 10 interceptions. I'm
not gonna blame him for I'm gonna blame him for probably 2 of the fumbles.
I don't know how many fumbles he had.
Yeah, I'm gonna blame him for 2 of the fumbles because he could have easily tucked it and ran.
He looked at times scared to run. I mean, especially early in the season.
That throw to Thielen though, against Green Bay in week 2.
Yeah,
it was week 2, right?
Yeah,
that's better than any quarterback since Brett Favre.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
I mean, there was a bunch of throws this year that you're like, man, that is a great throw.
Right.
I haven't seen that throw in years, and Keenum couldn't make that throw.
People call him stat guy, and they talk about his money. It is what it is. We haven't had a quarterback around here throwing for 30 touchdowns and 4,500 yards in a long time, in a decade.
I don't want to hear people talk about Cousins' money until they start bringing up Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, and Aaron Rodgers' money. Because they got way more.
Dude, Aaron Rodgers had worst year than Kirk Cousins, if you look at it.
Or Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
He got more guaranteed money than Cousins did, and what has he proven? That he could win a couple games on New England?
Yeah.
And he won a bunch of games at the end of the year on a team that had nothing to play for last year.
Yep. I know. But he did miss some towards the end of the year when the happy feet came in, when the Swiss cheese line was at its best. Kirk Cousins started slinging the ball over people's heads, and he started to melt under the pressure. And I want my quarterback to never, ever care about the pressure and not melt.
Yeah.
Because Tom Brady wouldn't,
I mean, you're also comparing him to
a guy who makes less money than him.
By choice.
Yeah, it's his fault.
Well,
I mean, when you
I guess I'm not
going to
get on
money than you, I think you'd be all right.
When you look at fans around Minnesota, they're always on Kirk Cousins' money, right? They're always on his money. They're always talking about how I've seen him called everything from death threats, a bomb, all the way up into us, where we're like, hey, look at the line, and we try to involve everybody in the team. Bottom line is there's 11 players in the field, and if they're not all doing their job, it's a hard game.
Well, let me ask you something, Jason. I'm curious as far as you being a coach and looking at Mike Zimmer. It feels like he's strictly a defensive coach, and he handles that. He sorts that away. He takes care of that and kind of leaves the offense on its own. And then when it hits a rough patch, he kind of jumps in and, wants to make his presence felt about how he wants the offense to be run. When it's not going well, like is that even like
it's not
that even a good way to do like even to?
I don't get why he's trying to throw his offensive coordinator under the bus in press conferences.
Yeah,
I don't get, and I not that I don't agree with him. I think we did need to run more. We passed more than everybody in the NFL, and it might be because of our line. But as the way I understand football, is blocking forward is way easier than blocking backwards. So blocking forward is running, blocking backwards is passing, right? It's easier for those guys to get into rhythm and start trying to pop. I would rather see my team in 3rd and 3 than 3rd and 7 all day long. I don't want to see a run for 2 yards, a pass incomplete. You know what I mean? Or a pass. It just doesn't make any sense.
Expected that, though, hiring DiFilippo? Because the way that the Eagles had success last year is they kind of had like 3 different running backs that all kind of did 3 different things, and they really weren't really the primary focus of the offense. They kind of were sprinkled in. Like Ajayi was kind of the goal line back, kind of got the 1st and 2nd down. Clement was the pass catcher, and Sproles obviously was along those same lines.
He was hurt last year. It was kind of Smallwood, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Smallwood, more Smallwood than Sproles, but they kind of do the same thing anyway. Sproles obviously is more effective.
Yeah.
But I think they kind of do more, they kind of focus more on like being a passing team and kind of sprinkle the running backs in. And that kind of goes with my thought of if we hired him, why didn't we get a Sproles, Smallwood type? We have Cook, who could be the theoretical Ajayi, and they have Blunt too, right?
Yeah, last year they did.
And Murray could be the theoretical Blunt, but we missed out on that pass.
I love theoretical blunts.
I bet you do.
I know where you're going with it, and I completely agree with you. And Zimmer's old school, where he believes you run to set up the pass.
That goes into my saying that we didn't have all our ducks in a row either. Like
Correct.
We couldn't decide on what we wanted to do. Like it was halfway. Like we just put our toes in the water with trying to like be an Eagles type offense, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, if you run to set up the pass, you don't hire DiFilippo. But nobody was calling for Mike Zimmer's head when the Rams, of course, elite offense, going up and down the field on us, and we couldn't keep up on a score with them. Nobody's calling for his head.
I wasn't calling for his head.
I mean, I'm talking about. I'm talking about fans in general. Fans weren't calling for his.
It's
head.
so cool. I'm actually really happy right now that when I said I was, you didn't consider me as a fan. You consider me above them.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I consider you a genius.
So when it comes to Zimmer, I think it all starts with his momentum handling, and he's a horrible momentum coach during the game. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the Timberwolves and being a player's coach and being hard on them and stuff like that. And this might be this is a small, minor example because I am a football coach, starting at the middle school level, which is, who cares, right? Big deal. It's middle school. But the one thing I learned is when I started is I tried to be the player coach. I tried to be the guy who'd go up to the kid like, hey, blah, 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 blah. You should throw the outside shoulder instead of this. And the head coach would hear me and go, you're right, but he can't do that. You know what I mean? And I don't ever say I can't, and I don't ever say I'm going to lose, right? That's where I start, okay? So then I told the head coach, well, let's let him try. And then he started to. You know what I mean? And that's just small. It's just middle school. Big deal. But it goes all the way up to the NFL level. If you say, hey, this team can't do this, and you're the coach, and you're like, hey, we can't do this, or we can do this, you're automatically pigeonholing yourself. You got to do everything good. I'm on a tangent right now. Okay? So bringing it back to what TJ was talking about.
Should I reel you back in?
Yeah, I'm going to reel it back in here. Zimmer has... he has a defeatist attitude sometimes on the sideline. And when you're in practice, you need to set up your game plan. You need to make the guys work hard. When it comes to the game, you need to get rid of all your old school bullshit and leave it for the birds, dude. You have to be even keeled the whole game. You have to be, in these guys' face. You have to have a winner's attitude the whole game, or else they're going to fold. We saw it week 17 with Cousins and Thielen, your two elite players, yelling at each other. When they're yelling at each other, how do you let that end up on camera? As a head coach, how do you not walk over and tell them both to shut the fuck up? Hey, shut the fuck up. That's how that works. Like, it's over then, because you're the head coach, right? We need to get on the same page. We need to get on the same page with the offensive coordinator. And why are we not on the same page during the week? I don't get that. Like, how is your game plan different from the offensive coordinator's game plan? What are we talking about? Are we going to control the ball and play defense? Or are we going to throw on these guys? It's that simple.
It's like I said, I feel like Zimmer's whole tenure, he's just been like, I'll handle the defense and I'll hire somebody to handle the offense.
Not only that, but when he comes to a press conference, he points. He's like, oh, that's the offense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He's a big finger pointer.
How is it the offense, dude? You're the head coach. And now there's talks of him bringing it in like an assistant coach type that's going to handle the offense and be like a voice over the team. Dude, there's one voice over the team. There always is. There's one guy who ends up in the newspaper. There's one voice over the team. I don't give a shit who your freaking offensive coordinator is. Tell them how you want it ran. They're just going to sit there and wait for direction anyway. So if you say, do whatever you want, don't blame them. You know what I mean? How can you blame a guy if you have no hand? If you're not in the trenches with the offense and you're just only focused on defense, how are you going to blame them? I don't get it.
I mean, there's a reason why he's been through 4 offensive coordinators in the last 4 years. Right.
And it goes back to the point where you're talking about working hard, like NBA players and NFL players. Like I said, when I started coaching in 7th grade, I was like, oh, let's be friends. You guys don't have to work hard. I'm going to only make you do killers so much. Last year, I was like, okay, we need to make them work harder, and we did better. And now we're in 5th grade, and the head coach on my team was making these kids do wheelbarrows the whole field and running killers back and then doing the whole field on wheelbarrows again. You ever see a lineman try to do a wheelbarrow for 100 yards?
I'd quit.
But guess what? It led to wins. And when I was a dick to these kids in practice, the very first game, completely different. I'm on their side. I'm uplifting. I'm trying to focus on winning, and I'm trying to focus on them having fun and being happy. At the end of the season, we were 9-0, and then at the end of the playoffs and whatever, we ended up being 2nd place in the state. And they wanted to go back to practice where they had to work hard and do fucking bear crawls for 100 yards. Little kids that are in 6th grade, 5th grade.
So what Jason's saying, Mike Zimmer, is won't you go out and watch a Big Lake 5th grade football team and watch how the coaches handle their kids?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying in practice is the time to figure out your shit and be hard on your players. In the game is the time to handle your own shit and be more supportive, uplifting. Definitely at a press conference, the worst thing you can do is throw offensive players and offensive coordinators under the bus and then fire them so that way there's no continuity ever built up within your program.
He don't necessarily fire them. He lets them mutually decide to
and to that point too. I mean, he's had some in game, game day like hiccups as well, as far as like managing the clock,
always managing
what he challenges, stuff like that. Like, I've always kind of been, more pro Zimmer than not. This kind of seems like a theme with me, but I don't know. The more we've discussed it over the time, like, I think people have made some valid points as far as calling into question Zimmer's leadership and his effectiveness. I kind of am at the point now where it's like they're kind of adding up to me. And, I mean, I guess it all kind of comes out in the wash with his contract. He has 1 year left, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, there's kind of been some issues raised with, is he a lame duck coach too, as far as like getting an offensive coordinator? But in my opinion, it's like he's got some improvements to make this year. And I think he's done enough to have that year, but I mean, it's starting to kind of swing the pendulum a little bit, in my opinion.
It's the NFL. Everybody's got a 1 year contract, whether you got a 5 year contract or not.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, so saying that players aren't going to sign here because they don't know if Zimmer will be here.
I think it is a fair concern as far as an offensive coordinator, though.
I mean, you'd like to know who you're playing for, but
we might get stuck with somebody that doesn't have like options, you know?
Yeah, I mean, who's our assistant quarterbacks coach?
Yeah.
Well, as of right now, who's I guess the opinion in terms of the head of
Sperano have a son that can be?
Ain't that the truth? I mean, holy shit. Sperano's going to be the offensive coordinator. Who? Oh, he coached high school. It's totally cool. Minnesota would be fucking happy, dude. They would be up and like, yeah.
I don't know. Sperano's not one of us, though. I mean,
right,
I think it's
exactly. I don't want to shit on Zimmer either.
It's a bad
because how many years have we seen offenses run wild in the NFL and then our defense give up touchdowns? You know what I mean? And losing the playoffs, and that Rams game in '99. Holy shit. That was crazy.
Well, I think we fell victim to kind of that simple math where everybody thought, you know, we made the NFC Championship game last year and we added, you know, an upgrade at quarterback, and it was just going to be, you know, put those two together and it's instant success. And
then we had injuries on the offense.
I remember having this conversation with Pat after the Favre year where we went to the NFC Championship game and everybody was talking about, you know, unfinished business. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling you, I was like, it's not going to be that easy. Like year to year in the NFL, like you're not guaranteed success the next year based off what you did the year before. And I think we kind of, as fans, fell victim to those expectations. And looking back on it, you can kind of see why, you know, we fell short, and it's not a huge surprise.
2010. You guys remember that year?
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't. All I remember is Brett Favre's head like beaten off the freaking turf.
It was an awful year.
And TCF Bank.
It wasn't.
That's all I remember from that year. Well, I do remember Favre throwing to Moss for that one touchdown that everybody put on a fucking painting and try to sign and shit and sell off in a mediocre year. And that kind of goes back to Childress, how he's not a player's coach, and the whole fucking market wanted him gone, right?
Yeah.
And all he did was, you know, bring us to the playoffs. What was it, 2 of 4 years? 2 of 5 years?
I think he had 4.
So, yeah, let's fire him.
So he had a better hit rate than Zimmer.
He improved.
Technically.
He improved his record every year until the last one, too. Which is why I felt like he deserved another chance to right the ship. But
people are going to tell you you're dumb because you're for Childress.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Because he's not a player's coach.
I mean, I feel like I'm the only person that is for Thibs. So,
so do I.
I'm getting used to it. But
I guess, you know...
I don't want Laquan Treadwell gone, so, I mean, I'm really getting beat up if anybody sees me on the street.
Yeah, but it's not Laquan Treadwell's fault that he got taken in the first round.
I mean, we need Jarius right back.
It's not Laquan Treadwell's fault that he ended up with a defensive coach that doesn't like him. It's not Laquan Treadwell's fault that he has to go through multiple offensive coordinators. And also, Laquan Treadwell has improved year to year to year. When this guy comes out and says, "Oh, I think I've had the best year so far," or "I've had a great year," people hate on him.
Yeah. Well, he's not lying either, because his expectations are kind of low. And so when you basically exceed those expectations of like a 20 catch season and go to 35, of course you've, you know, exceeded those expectations.
Year one, what was the stats?
One catch.
For how many touchdowns?
17 yards, I think.
Year two, what was the stats?
He had like 20 catches or something like that.
This year, what was his stats?
35 catches.
For how many touchdowns? One?
Yeah.
So it's his first touchdown this year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but people are only going to remember the drop that was intercepted.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
He had 35 catches for one touchdown. If he were to get cut or go to NFL free agency, literally within 5 days, he's going to have a team willing to pay him $1 million. Literally. Because he had 35 catches and a touchdown.
And he's young.
Yep.
I mean, I hope
he's
they
a former first-round pick.
Exactly.
I hope they give him more than $1 million, but
he wouldn't get much more. Well, we only owe him 3.
I don't know what vet minimum is, but
We're going to keep him.
well, we should.
He's only worth 3. We're only paying him 3.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep him.
Well, let me tie it into with that conversation we have about the Eagles. Like, if that's the offense, I mean, it might not be anymore, but if that's the offense we went into the year supposedly modeling ourselves after, we need a big receiver in the Alshon Jeffrey mode. And I'm not saying Treadwell is Alshon Jeffrey at all, but I do feel like there's a role right there where he could have been helpful. A big body receiver. We have Thielen and Diggs, both kind of, smaller stature, kind of more effective they're effective everywhere, but I think their peak effectiveness is probably in the slot, but both of them are really good on the outside as well. But to kind of, and you said Cousins was overthrowing people. It's like those guys are kind of smaller. I feel like we could have used a bigger receiver with a catch radius, and especially in the end zone. Like, I feel like our offense kind of bogs down and our options are limited there. It's like, at some point, don't you want to kind of utilize your first round pick and see if you have strengths that you haven't tapped into yet?
Right. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And the reason why Kirk Cousins probably 60% of the time overthrows, let's just take all his overthrows. 60% of the time, it's really because he's afraid of how much time he has.
Yeah.
So that leads in the offensive line, which leads into Rick Spielman, which is probably the worst. Like you guys brought up, I don't know. Would you rate Zimmer or Spielman worse, TJ? Like in terms of number one problem.
I mean, with all that I just said, as far as like our offense having no direction and he doesn't really seem to be able to get us out of it, I guess I'd have to put Zimmer first now.
Right.
He can't get the offensive end figured out.
Which is weird, right? And he comes from an organization that has actually never really won a playoff game. And, I
know defense is your strength, but ultimately you're the head coach. So, I mean, you're just as responsible for both sides of the ball.
And I'm not talking about Boomer Esiason in Cincinnati.
That's probably the last time they won a playoff game.
I'm just bringing up their organization in general. But at the same time, their owner is kind of like Glenn Taylor, where he doesn't want to spend too much money and doesn't want to go too far into the cap. Taylor doesn't want to go too far in the luxury tax, actually. And bringing it back to the Vikings, maybe you're right. Maybe Zimmer is the issue. I had it ranked Rick Spielman, Zimmer, then Kirk Cousins, then the O-line. Regardless, I want fans to stop talking about this dude's money. Seriously, every time I look on social media, the low-hanging fruit is $84 million. $84 million. That's all I ever see. I don't get it. I don't know why. If you're not used to seeing NFL quarterbacks getting paid a lot of money, then don't watch the NFL. They're the most important person on the team. They run people's franchises. They get paid a lot of money. They make a lot of money for the owner. If you look at like a defensive end who gets paid a lot of money, he's in a rotation some of the times for half of the game, which means that he plays probably 30% of the game. The quarterback touches the damn ball 50% of the game, literally.
It's just an easy way for fans to vent their frustration without having to look too deep into it.
Yeah, true. So in terms of the recap of the Viking season, Pat, what would your overall grade be, and what's your final thoughts on it?
You're probably looking at like a C. C at high end. C minus.
Yeah, on the high end.
I mean, they finished.
It's because we upgraded a quarterback, right?
I mean,
in the playoffs.
they finished 8-7-1. I mean, you really can't get that's.
Zimmer's only playoff win is a fucking miracle.
They had a tough schedule this year too.
They did have a tough schedule.
They had a lot of tough road games.
They did absolutely have a tough schedule. I mean, when all your road games are against the top teams in each division.
Yeah.
I mean, the only team that basically the only teams that had a winning record coming in here were Chicago and the Saints. I mean, without really looking at the schedule offhand, but
and Chicago's actually pretty decent. All they have to do is kick a field goal and they're in the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't get blocked,
tipped,
it still changes the trajectory of the kick.
It actually did. You think any Bears fans are going to apologize to the kicker after cussing them out?
No, they're not, man. They got the torches out front of his yard right now.
What do you think, TJ?
Yeah, I don't think I want, I mean, obviously that ship has sailed, but I think people are frustrated and a lot of people call for Zimmer to be fired. I kind of lean towards, I don't really like a revolving door of coaches getting started, but he has one more year. There's a lot of pressure on him and Spielman this year to get the offensive side of the football figured out. And if they do it, there's a chance they stick around. If they don't, they're probably gone.
Exactly. Pat, who do you have for the Super Bowl?
Colts. Nah, it's not going to be the Colts. It's going to be. I mean, I'm just going to go off the two top seeds. I mean, I think it's going to be Kansas City and the Saints. I think the Saints are going to be tough to beat, especially at home.
Dude, the Saints are going to be tough to beat. Who do you think, TJ?
I want to, play the different card, but I think I probably lean that way as well. So part of me could see New England beating the Chiefs, but I don't know. I feel like that might be the Super Bowl that everybody wants to see. I feel like it's kind of the Super Bowl I want to see.
Which one?
Saints and Chiefs.
Saints and Chiefs, yeah.
I mean, even Chiefs-Rams again would be the way that they played that 1 week earlier in the season. I mean, they scored 105 points or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that was a fun game. I mean, I like a little more defense than that, but I mean, that was an very entertaining game to watch.
I don't see the Rams making it because of their defense. Their defense, if you look at the last 5 to 6 weeks, if you look at statistics, which I'll admit I don't have any in front of me right now, they've been pretty much terrible. They have been terrible.
Rams lose to the Cowboys this weekend.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah.
When you say, oh, yeah, you sound pretty confident.
It's confident.
And you're like shaking your head like it's like not even a question.
85%.
Why, Jared Goff?
No,
Why? Because their quarterback is really good?
No, I like the way Dallas' defense is playing. I'm not a believer in Dak Prescott. I think he's a terrible quarterback. But
terrible strong.
Okay, slightly above terrible. I don't think he does anything special. He's Alex Smith to me. Not a special quarterback, but he can win you some games.
You see that throw to Beasley?
Yeah, that was a great throw.
Alex Smith can't make that throw. And you guys know that I like Alex Smith.
Yeah, you love Alex Smith.
Dak doesn't make that throw a lot, though.
No.
Like, that raised my eyebrows. I was like, wow. I can't remember him ever making that throw.
I mean, the only way Dak Prescott's going to win is if his running game's doing anything.
You trust Jared Goff? I don't really trust Jared Goff.
No. That's why I'm saying I think the Colts.
I don't trust their defense.
The Cowboys are going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, their defense is putrid.
Rams defense
They're terrible.
is terrible.
As much money they spent on that defense, they're bad.
Sean McVay should be the one bringing in Zimmer, and that would be like the best team in the NFL.
That's what Wade Phillips is supposed to be.
Yeah, that's true.
Hasn't worked out yet. I mean, they've had stretches where they're pretty good, but overall, it doesn't seem like they're very consistent at all. Especially with the talent that they've accumulated.
They have Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah. I mean, they got a lot of really good names on their defense. They're just not.
They overpaid for a lot of really good names.
Yeah, Sue.
Yeah.
Marcus Peters has been getting beat constantly this year.
Sue gets murdered and Peters gets murdered right now.
Talib has been hurt kind of all year. He's back now, though.
Talib's been average for 5 years.
Still decent.
3 years.
Still decent.
Over-exaggerated. It's been 3 years. Sorry. Decent? What do you mean decent, by the way? When you say decent. Like, what's that? What decent, in your opinion, is a grade? Is it D? Because that's about what he is.
Decent? No, I'd say
when you
decent.
say decent, is it a D?
C+.
You
B
think
minus.
Peters has been a C+?
Peters? I said Talib.
You think Talib's been a C+?
He's been hurt a lot this year. I'm just saying he's still a decent cornerback.
He's a quitter.
Oh, maybe. And he likes to fight.
He's a
crab
quitter. Sorry. So you guys both have Saints and Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's boring, but
It is
I don't know.
boring.
It just feels like that's the way it's probably going to go.
I feel Saints.
It's tough. I
don't know,
I feel like
man.
do you see the Chiefs losing to Arrowhead? That's tough. I don't know. I mean, they do a lot of the times, but I just feel like
I haven't seen the Chiefs win in like 20 years
Right.
in the playoffs, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But now they have the best quarterback of all time, so
all time.
I have to graduate it. Hey,
It's like that meme of all them hot dogs.
all the hot dogs in your face? Hell yeah. But I have to graduate it because last year I said he was the best quarterback in the NFL when he wasn't even playing and people were laughing at me. So now I have to graduate of all time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
You could have just took your win and be happy, though.
Yeah, exactly. But now you got to keep going.
You're doubling down.
He's only good because his dad played baseball.
that makes sense.
That's clearly why he's only good.
He's really fucking good. He's really good.
He's okay.
So, out of those two, who do you have winning?
Saints.
I hope not. Who do you have winning?
Where is it in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Does that matter?
Yeah, familiar
Saints on
territory. That is on turf, too, yeah.
I suppose.
Kamara on turf? Ooh, boy.
You guys remember that play last year when Kamara ran by Kendricks and caught that fucking touchdown on the wheel?
Michael Thomas against the Chiefs corners.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes versus everybody.
Yeah.
Mahomes is
Ty Hill running by everybody in the secondary.
Tyreek Hill's going to get held to 6 catches for 32 yards.
Ty Hill would never catch
32
6.
yards.
Yeah, what the fuck?
He's going to catch a bunch of bubble screens and only get 5 yards apiece.
Cool calling fucking. That
Great
would be
prediction.
Yeah, that would be a terrible offensive set.
I just say a lot of
I'm
shit.
just gonna go ahead and call bubble screens with this fast guy over there.
I just say a lot of shit just to get reaction.
Right. Who do you want to be in the Super Bowl?
Colts.
And who?
Probably Colts and Rams.
Who do you think, TJ?
Probably Chiefs and Saints. I think it'd be a good game. I don't really have any feelings towards any of these teams that are left. I was kind of into Baltimore. I like watching Lamar Jackson, but they're done, so.
Michael Vick, you mean?
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far, but I do think Lamar Jackson's got a lot of potential.
Sick and tired of people calling him Michael Vick.
He's fun to watch, though.
Shout out to Little Bros.
Yeah, shout out to Little Bros.
Lamar Jackson's fun to watch, so
Yeah, he
I
is.
enjoy watching him play.
I actually want it to be Philly and Kansas City, and I want Philly to lose by 30. So all their fans shit on themselves and talk shit on the internet. And
I want them to lose as soon as possible.
It's either they shit on themselves or eat shit.
Dude, is there something about, is Foles really, does he really have the magic that people talk about? It's not Brett Favre-like, though, is it?
I don't know. I don't think he played 2 really good games last year.
He drove straight down the field this week and fucking scored.
I mean, he's I think in that system, he's good. Next year, because he's probably going to be somewhere else, if they don't cater him around that exact system and try to fit him into some other kind of offensive system, I don't think he's going to.
Didn't he look pretty awful to start the season, though, when you were waiting for Wentz to get back?
Yeah. I mean, last year, they
weird.
barely, I mean, they had a 14-2 record or a 13-3 record, just like we did. And I think they were getting by. I mean, last year. I mean, I was like, going up to the the game that we were going to play against them last year in the NFC Championship game. I'm like, our defense is going to eat this dude apart because I don't see anything special. And then he beats us 41.
I like how their offense is set up, and that's why I keep alluding to DiFilippo coming here and why we didn't mirror that. Like, they have a lot of different options. They can do a lot of different things, and they have a coach that does a lot of different things and utilizes all their talent.
Listen, I was all for DiFilippo. You guys know it.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, he created the red zone offense for that team. I thought he was a genius. He reminded me of Sean McVay, so I was all over that bandwagon. I was wrong. He's just not. I knew he was going to get fired when they were asking him questions 2 weeks before he got fired. When he was talking about, oh, I hate this time of year, and oh, it reminds me of when my dad got fired, and blah, 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 blah. He was already defeated. Clearly in practice, Zimmer was giving it to him. You know what I mean? And our O-line got him fired and got us out of the playoffs. That starts from Spielman. It all starts with Spielman.
All right.